Cyber audit. Cyber security is an attempt to minimizing any risk of financial loss, disruption, or damage to reputation of an organization that may arise from the failure of its information technology system. The objective of the cyber security audit is to provide an assessment of the operating effectiveness of cyber security policies and procedures and identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover processes and activities to the board. Next, the cyber security and control issues which deals under the cyber security audit includes: first, protection, and third is responsibility. Protection of sensitive data and intellectual property, protection of networks to which multiple information sources are connected, and responsibility and accountability for device and information contained in it. Scope of cyber security audit includes: first, data security policies relating to network, database, and applications in place. Data loss prevention measures deployed. Effective network access controls implemented. Means while accessing, the controls are implemented. Detection or prevention systems deployed. Security controls established, either physical and logical. Incident response program means if any attack in cyber has been happened, what is the response program? Backup plan. What is the backup plan? That. Next, dimension of cyber security audit process: management, risk management, internal audit. Management, risk management, internal audit. In risk management, first, to identify and ensure the risk is addressed. First, to identify and ensure the risk is addressed. In management, the management of the company ultimately owns the risk decision made for the organization. Therefore, it has a vested interest in ensuring that the cyber security controls exist and are operating effectively. And third, internal audit. This audit helps enterprises with the challenges of managing cyber threats by providing an objective evaluation of the controls and making recommendations to improve them as well, and assisting the senior management and board of directors understand and respond to the cyber risk. Organizations, especially within the public sector, also contract for services of external auditors to provide independent assurance of financial and operational controls, primarily to ensure the controls design is effective and the needs of the organization are being met. Next, illustrative checkpoint on the cyber security audit. First, personal security, physical security, account and password management, confidentiality of data, compliance and audit. Personal security, physical security, PPAC, PPACC, 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 P for personal security, P for physical security, A for account and password management, C for confidentiality of data, C for compliance and audit. First, whether the in personal security, whether the staff wears ID badge, whether it is a current picture on the ID badge, or authorized access levels and types identified on the badge, whether the credentials of the external contractors are checked, whether the company has a policies addressing background check, and whether the company has a process for effectively cutting off access to the facilities and information system when an employee terminates its employment. Second, physical security, whether the company has policies and procedures that addresses the allowing authorized and limiting the unauthorized physical access to electronic information system, whether the company policies and procedures specify the methods used to control the physical access to secure areas such as door locks, access to control systems, security officers, or video monitoring. Means company has a policy to control the physical access. First one was to limit the unauthorized access, whether the company has a policy. Third is whether the access to computing areas is controlled. And third one, account and password management, whether the company has a policies and standards covering the electronic authentication, authorization and access control of personnel. And second, whether the company ensures that only authorized personnel have the access to computers, whether the company requires and enforces appropriate password, first authentication, next authority, next password. And fourth was, are your password secure and regularly changed? And fourth one is confidentiality of the data, whether the company is exercising responsibilities to protect sensitive data under their control, whether the most valuable or sensitive data encrypted, whether the company has a policy for identifying and retention of the information, both hard and soft copies. Next, last, compliance and audit, whether the company reviews and revises the security documents such as policies, standards, procedures and guidelines on a regular basis, whether the company audits the process and procedures for compliance with established policies and standards, whether the company tests the disaster plans on a regular basis, does management regularly review list of the individual with physical access to sensitive facilities or electronic access to the information system. Next, environmental audit. Environment includes water, air, land, the interrelationship which exists between water, air, land, and human beings, other living creatures, plants, microorganisms, and property. Environmental audit in general term reflect various types of evaluation intended to verify the environmental compliance and management system implementation gaps along with related corrective actions, and it has a wide variety of meanings. Environmental audit refers to verification and assessment of environmental measures in an organization. Objective of environmental audit are to evaluate the efficacy of the utilization of the resources of a man, mission, materials, and to identify the areas of environmental risk and liabilities and weakness of the management and system and problems. The following issues will merit special attention. First, initiatives to prevent, abate, or remedy damage to the environment. Conservation, conservation to renewable and non-renewable resources. Consequences of violating environmental laws, rules, regulations. Consequences of vicarious liability imposed by the government. And when it comes to environmental audits, there are two types. First, environmental compliance audit and environmental management system audit, EMS audit. EMS is also known as ISO 14001, means ISO 14001. First, in environmental compliance audit, air, water, radiation, pesticides, and miscellaneous. Air, water, radiation, pesticides, and miscellaneous. Air, water, radiation, pesticides, and miscellaneous. These acts are given. And next, in EMS, ISO 14001 is a voluntary international standard for environmental management system. It is a management tool enabling an organization of any size or type to first identify, improve, implement, identify and control the environmental impact of its activities and products or services on the environment, and to improve its environmental performance continually, and to implement a systematic approach to setting environmental objectives. ISO 14001 is an environmental management system standard published by an international organization for standardization in the year 1996. It provides highly effective, globally accepted framework for establishing and continually improving the effectiveness of the environmental management. The ISO defines an environmental management system as a part of the management system audit used to manage environmental aspects, fulfill the compliance obligations, and address risk and opportunities. Next, process of the environment audit. In these 4 points are there. First, understand the industrial activity and pre-audit or planning stage. This is also known as planning stage. So, understanding the industrial activity and pre-audit or planning stage. Second, on-site or field audit. Assessing the impact and post-audit. Fourth, follow-up or review. In first point, collection of a background information about the entity, definition of objectives and scope of audit. And in second, communicate the objectives of the audit to key facilities and schedule the necessary meetings and interview. And in third, final evaluation of the findings, submit preliminary report with the type and magnitude of the impact, and follow up or review, verify the action taken on audit findings and recommendation. Checklist on the environmental audit. In these 3 points. First one was environmental audit types. There are two: environmental compliance audit and EMS. And this is the checklist. In checklist, 3 points are there: environmental policy, environmental aspects, legal and other aspects. Environmental, first policy, next aspects, next legal and other requirements. First, company should have a policy regarding what? Environmental aspects and any other legal aspects. Whether the company have defined the documents in its environmental policy, whether such policy is based on the significant environment aspects are considered. Does the policy include commitments to 3? First, continual improvement, prevention of the pollution, comply with the environmental legislation and other requirements. Does the policy provide a framework for setting environmental objectives and targets? Is the policy documented? And 7th, is the policy freely available to the public? Environmental aspects, whether the procedure have been established implemented and maintained to identify the environmental aspects of current and relevant past activities. Means all in environmental related aspects is identified or not, that one. Second, whether aspects related to potential significant environment aspects are considered. Significant environmental aspects are fourth point is there, no? That only air, water, wastewater, waste, soil and all. Are the following environmental aspects are considered in sufficient detail? So air, wastewater, water, waste management, soil and raw material, hazardous and toxic material. Fifth, other environmental specific issues on site such as housekeeping, storage areas, and are the following operational aspects covered? Normal operations, abnormal operating conditions, development of new or modified process, and last, legal and other requirements. As the procedure been developed and implemented to identify the applicable regulatory, legal and other requirements, are current copies of all the applicable regulatory and other requirements accessible to personnel, have all future agreements the organization needs to be fulfilled been integrated in procedure, business related and agreement. Guideline other than legal requirements are the following licenses, permits, approvals available. First, license of waste collector, air emission permit, wastewater discharge permit and license related, environmental fee, registration at authorities. Next, information system audit or system audit is an ongoing process of evaluating controls, collecting and evaluating evidence to determine whether a computer system safeguards assets, maintain data integrity, allows organizational goals to be achieved effectively and uses resources efficiently. Thus, information system audit supports traditional audit objectives. The audit consists of an evaluation of the components which comprise that system with the examination and testing in the following areas. First, high level system architecture review, business process mapping, end user identity management, operating systems, application security controls, database access control, antivirus, anti-malware controls, network controls, logging and audit systems, IT privileged access control, backup or restore products. General objectives of system auditing. First, validation, automation, internal training members. First, validation of the organizational aspects and administration of the information service function. Next, validation of controls, validation of access controls, automation of internal auditing activities, internal training members of the information service function department. Next, checklist on the system audit. Checklist has 4 and each of them have subpoints. First one is management controls. Checklist: management control, operational, organizational, application. First, management, operational, organizational, application. Management, operational, organizational, application. Management, operational, organizational, application. In first, management controls, security policy standard, constitution of the steering committee, management, business continuity plan, systems development methodology. So, SCBS, security policy and standards, constitution of steering committee, business continuity planning, system development methodology. Whether organization has a security policy, if a security policy exists, it need to be examined for adequacy. And constitution of steering committee, the formulation of and implementation of a sound security policy should be a team effort brought into effect by a committee in which there is at least one member of a board of directors apart from CIO and HODs. This formulation implementation of a sound security policy, to formulate and implement a sound security policy, they constitute the steering committee. And third, business continuity planning. The auditor should examine all such possibilities by which availability of a computer system is threatened with temporary or permanent breakdown. In sensitive areas, even proofing against mob violence or terrorist strike should be kept in view. System development methodology. The documentation should be properly cross-indexed. The effect of a change made in the system should be well understood and thorough testing should be done and documented. And next, operational controls, ME. Operational control, ME. Monitoring physical assets, ensure adequate environmental controls. Monitoring the physical asset, ensure the adequate environmental controls. First, physical asset. Whether monitoring of physical assets are done in regular intervals, or any discrepancy in the data collected and current data of physical assets are addressed immediately or not. And ensure adequate environmental controls. Whether proper facilities of air conditioning, power conditioning are there, whether the cable connections, electronic points are functioning properly or not. And organizational controls, whether the roles, responsibilities and duties of the user and IT departments are defined. The CIO should have 3 reportees, one for taking care of development team and one for ensuring the information system information or IT center security, and another for managing the facility. And last, application control, whether each of the computer system and subsystems must have its own set of controls for inputs, processing outputs, and processing the control should have ensure for legal compliance. Next, forensic audit is a dynamic and strategic tool in combating corruption, financial crimes and fraud through investigations and resolving allegations of fraud and embezzlement. Forensic science is a science applied to legal matters, especially criminal matters. Forensic means suitable for use in the court of law. The examination of a company's financial records to derive evidence which can be used in a court of law as a forensic audit. It includes use of accounting, auditing and investigative tools to assist in legal matters. Forensic audit are highly specialized and work requires detailed knowledge of fraud investigation technique and legal framework. So, forensic audit are highly specialized and the work requires detailed knowledge of fraud investigation techniques and the legal framework. Forensic accountants are trained to look beyond the numbers and has necessary skills and experience to accept the work. Forensic audit is done in two phases. First, investigation and second, litigation. Litigation. In investigation services, just auditor will come and investigates and give report to the company and over. In litigation services, sometimes the auditor will give witness as an expert witness for the investigation in the court. And areas of the forensic audit: first, criminal investigation, professional negligence cases, fraud investigation and or risk or control reviews, arbitration cases, settlement of insurance claims, dispute. So first, criminal, professional negligence, fraud investigation, arbitration, settlement of insurance claims, dispute settlement. Purpose of forensic audit. In these 3 points are there. First, corruption, asset misappropriation, financial statement fraud. Corruption, asset misappropriation, financial statement fraud. In corruption, the forensic audit, while investigating fraud, auditor would look out for conflict of interest, bribery, extortion. Conflict of interest. When a fraudster used his or her influence for personal gains detrimental to the company. Even though the manager is not benefited from this approval, but he is likely to receive personal benefits after making such inappropriate approvals, then also he will be held liable. Bribery, as the name suggests, offering money to get things done or influence a situation one's favor would be a bribery. Extortion. In the above example, if someone demands money as to award tender to other party, then it would be amount to extortion. A driver uses a personal office car for his personal holiday trip is said to misappropriation of the asset. So, this is an example of asset misappropriation. This is the most common and prevalent fraud carried out by the fraudsters. Next, financial statement fraud. Companies get into such type of fraud so as to show a better performance of the company than what it actually is. Procedure for forensic auditing investigation. First, accepting the investigation, planning the investigation. Next, gathering the evidence. Fourth, reporting. Fifth, court proceedings. Accept investigation, plan the investigate, gather the evidence, report and court proceeding. First, we have to accept that I will do the investigation. I have accepted, but what and how to do? So, should plan the investigation. After plan has been prepared, according to my plan, I will gather the evidence. After gathering the evidence and coming to the conclusion, reporting. At last, court proceedings. Normally till 4th, but Fifth, in litigation, if it is a litigation phase, fifth will come court proceedings. Step 1, accepting the investigation. Determine whether or not they have the necessary tools, skills, expertise to go forward with such investigation. Only when they are satisfied with such consideration can go ahead with and accept the investigation. Planning the investigation. Planning the investigation is the key step in a forensic audit. Before planning the investigation, they should catalog possible fraud symptoms. So, in planning stage, 3 points are there. First, symptoms of fraud, internal indicators, and one more also is there. They should also be clear on final categories of report which are follows. Okay, symptoms of the fraud. Symptoms of the fraud. Three things related to delay, and one is lifestyle and one is internal control. Delay in submission of the returns and delayed remittances into bank. Delay or non-preparation of the bank reconciliation statement. Lifestyle of promoters or directors or key employees. Continued internal control lapse and not following norms of a corporate governance. Internal indicators. Delay in the financial of accounts, finalization of the accounts, frequent changes in the accounting policies, continuing losses, overdrawal of loans or advances, means overly drawing the amount for loan or advances, and highest cost price per unit of production. High amount of losses or wastage shown in the books. High investment in a group companies, means funds are disbursing. Profit not supported by increase in cash availability. Cash is there but profit not there. They should also clear on final categories. First, identify, quantify, gathering, providing. All ing. First, identifying, quantifying, gathering, providing. Identifying the type of fraud, identifying the fraudster involved, quantifying the financial loss, gathering evidence to be used in court, providing advice to prevent the reoccurrence of the fraud. Illustrative checklist on forensic audit. Whether the fraud detected is at management level or employee level, what was the reason or motive behind that, how is the internal check on cash transactions, who is responsible for checking it, if all the things are in order in regular intervals, what is the nature of fraud, corruption, asset misappropriation or financial. 3 words there, na? Which one it is, whether the entry is passed or property reflected in the balance sheet without any omission, whether IT returns are filed every year properly, whether bank entries are reconciled on a regular basis. So next, fraud triangle and fraud risk. Fraud triangle is a tool used in the forensic audit that explains 3 interrelated elements that assist the commission of the fraud. First, pressure, opportunity and rationalization. Pressure, opportunity, rationalization. Fraud risk is the vulnerability of a company organization has to those who are capable of overcoming the 3 elements in the fraud triangle. So, vulnerability means fraud risk means they are not in a position or they are unable to overcome. That is fraud risk. Fraud risk is the vulnerability of a company or organization has to those who are capable of overcoming the 3 elements in the fraud triangle. Fraud risk assessment is the identification of a fraud risk that exists in the company or organization. The planning involves the formulation of techniques and procedures that align with the fraud risk and fraud risk management. Step 3, gathering evidence. In forensic auditing, a logical flow of evidence helps in understanding the fraud and evidence presented in a better manner. If the same is not done, then the evidence can be challenged in the court or the court would not admit it. The investigator can use the following techniques to gather the evidence. First, analytical procedure. Using analytical procedure to compare trends over time or provide comparative between different segments of the business, applying computer assisted technique, for example, to identify the timing and location of a relevant details being altered in the computer system. Next, discussion and interview. Substantive testing technique means if for the detailed investigation they will use substantive technique. And forensic data analysis. This question was asked 2 times in the past year for 2 marks. So FDI is a technology used to conduct fraud investigations, the process by which evidence is gathered. So forensic data analysis is a technology used to conduct the fraud investigation, the process by which evidence is gathered, summarized and compared with existing different set of data. The aim here is to detect any Anomalies in the data means any changes in the data, and identify the pattern of such changes to indicate the fraudulent activity. Reporting. Auditor prepares a draft report to the management and submit their opinion. Management will submit their opinion to the auditor, and auditor either after inculcating or without inculcating the changes or suggestions or reply from the management will submit the report to authority. And at last, court proceeding. Next, forensic audit report. Forensic audit report is a statement of observation gathered and considered while proving conclusive evidence. And illustrative table of content of forensic audit report. Executive summary, origin of the audit, audit objective, proposed audit output, audit implementation approach, risk analysis, internal environmental risk, audit process, collect evidence, conduct interview, analyze finding. Next, social audit is a way of measuring, understanding, reporting, and ultimately improving an organization's social and ethical performance. Social audit event is an official evaluation of an organization involvement in social responsibilities, project, or endeavors. Implication of the social audit. First is a social auditing creates an impact upon governance. Social auditing is taken up for purpose of enhancing the local governance. And next, social audit makes it sure that in democracy the powers of the decision makers should be used for as far as the possible with the consent and understanding of the all the consent. Next, objectives of the audit. Assess, create, increase scrutiny, estimate, and provision. First, assess the physical and financial gap between the needs and resources available for local development, creating a awareness among beneficiaries, increasing the efficacy and effectiveness. Efficacy means efficiency. Scrutiny of the various policy decisions, estimation of the opportunity cost, provision of information needed. Rights of the social auditor: to seek, to consider, and to access, to seek clarification from the implementing agency, to consider and scrutinize existing schemes, access the register. Next, social audit coverage. There is no standard regarding what must be considered as the society during the audit. This allows a business to expand or contract the scope based on its goal. Use of social audit finding. As the social audit is completely voluntary, the result of audit is not required to be released to general public. Implementation of the social audit. Empowerment of the people, proper documentation, accessibility of the documents, punitive action. Empowerment of a people. Social audit is most effective when the actual beneficiaries of an activity are involved in it. Proper documentation. Everything right from the requirement gathering to planning to implementation must be properly documented. Some of the documents made mandatory are application, tender and proposals, financial statements, income expense statement, registers of workers, inspection reports. Accessibility of documents. Merely generating documents is useless if they are not easily accessible. In the information age, all the documents must put online. Punitive action. The final and most important provision about which nothing is being done yet is to have punitive action for non-conformance of the process of social audit. Next, steps for the social audit. Clarity of purpose and goal. Identify the stakeholders with a focus on their specific roles and duties. Definition of the performance indicators which must be understood. Regular meetings of the review. Follow-up of social audit meeting with the panchayat body. And establishment of a group of trusted local people including elderly people, teachers and others who are committed and independent. And last, these findings of social audit should be shared with all the local stakeholders. Checklist on social audit. Whether the company has well-defined policies for development of the society, especially the poor and rural people. Whether an organization on a regular basis, the scrutiny of a fulfillment of policy is done. Whether the physical and financial gaps between needs and resources available for local development are assessed on a regular intervals. Whether the voice of the minority shareholders are considered or necessary actions are taken over them. Done. And ICC social audit standards. In these objectives, the assessing the impact made by the social enterprise through implementation of activities, verifying the authenticity, to identify and report the gap between, assess the nature, evaluate the cost and efficiency of the project, verify whether all the stat requirements are fulfilled or not. And in scope, will the project significantly impact the economic, environmental and social? Will there be a significant change in the general access? Does the local community have effective governance mechanism to deal with long-term effort? Are there groups who will be differently impacted by the project? Will the project increase or decrease the demand for services? Will the project procedure produce any population or demographic movement? Means change in the present residents. Mandatory nature and framework and eligibility criteria. As per 292E of SEBI, in order to establish the primacy of social intent, such enterprise shall meet the following eligibility. These are scheduled 7 points. Benefits and advantages of social audit. Financial data on the social activities. Encourage for social performance. Improve the relationship with stakeholders. Comparison of different activities. Enhances social reputation. Sense of social responsibility among stakeholders and community as a whole.